Are examination a means or a means to an end? And what is the impact of examination on the process and outcomes of education? These are two questions that we will briefly respond to in this presentation. So first of all, what is the link between education and examination? So as we know that examinations, assessments, and evaluations are often an essential and integral part of the process of formal education. And the reason for this is that generally examinations help in determining the success or effectiveness, or the opposite of it, the unsuccess or ineffectiveness of the educational and instructional process. Secondly, effective exams and assessments or evaluations help us in the process of quality assurance because it helps us about the success or unsuccess of the educational process and its outcomes. Generally, when we are talking about the examination system in this presentation, we are talking about high-stake exams. That is, exams that generally happen at the end of an educational program or at a particular educational terminal stage. For example, the secondary school examination, the higher secondary school examinations, the university entry or entrance examinations, and the graduation examinations are some examples of the high-stake exams. Now, what particularly is washback effect, or in what ways the examination process actually affects the process of education? So generally, what we understand by the washback effect of exams is the type and extent of the impact of exams on educational or instructional or curriculum development and implementation processes. So in what ways the process or system of examination actually impacts the educational process, the instructional process, such as the teaching process in the classroom, the curriculum development and the curriculum implementation processes. That is considered as the washback effect of examinations. So generally, exams have an impact on the process and aims of curriculum development, the implementation of the curriculum, and the entire teaching learning practices. And not just this, but on the overall environment inside the educational institutions and also in the social environment in which the educational institutions are situated. So we can say that exams have a formidable impact on the overall institutional and socio-political environment in which the educational institutions are located. So in many cases, it happens that although exams need to be a means to an end, the process of exams actually become an end in itself. And so the whole focus shifts on how to pass exams and how to get grades rather than on the role of the exams is something that helps in establishing the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of the educational process. That is something that you can say is the negative washback effect of exams. Now, here are some ways in which exams can either positively or negatively impact the process of education in general. So positively, first of all, the exams actually help us in terms of goal-oriented developing an education system that is goal-oriented. And so we can say that the examination, the positive impact of exams is that the process of education, educational process actually becomes goal-oriented and focused. Secondly, it determines the effectiveness of the educational process in terms of, for example, curriculum development, in terms of the teaching that takes place in educational institutions, and in terms of the students' learning. So what is the extent and what is the quality of students' learning? That is something that exams can help us. The next thing is that generally exams help in the improvement of the whole educational process. Again, improvement of the curriculum, improvement of the teaching and teaching processes, the teaching methodologies, the teaching environment, and improvement of the students' learning in terms of their outcomes. So exam can indicate areas that we can improve in order to improve the overall educational process. And thirdly, exams help us in terms of establishing whether we should award degrees or certificates or we should not. But exam also has certain negative impacts on the process of education. The first one is that in many cases, exam can become an end in itself rather than a means to an end. Secondly, one of the washback effects of exam could be that we need to avoid is the teaching to test phenomena. In many cases, educational institutions and teachers start teaching in line with the requirements of the test. So, for example, if the exams are focused on testing the memory of the students rather than their real cognitive development, the focus of the exams will shift, of the teaching will shift towards forcing, compelling students to memorize. This especially happens in high-stakes exams where the reputation of the educational institutions and teachers is at stake in terms of securing or not securing higher grades in boards exams. Secondly, in some cases, the type of exam could lead to the use of unfair means because the focus is on exams and passing exams and getting higher grades. That can lead to individual or collective use of unfair means in exams. And so this needs to be avoided. Thirdly, selective teaching learning. In many cases, educational institutions, in some cases teachers as well, and students develop educated guesses related to the particular areas of the curriculum or the syllabi that continuously appear in exam papers. And so then they focus on actually preparing students for passing or for memorizing or learning those particular areas of the curriculum. And so that can happen. And so selective teaching and selective learning could also be one of the negative impacts of the examination process. And lastly, one of the washback effects of exams is the stress and anxiety. In many cases, because the focus of exams is on testing the memories, in some cases even the cheating abilities or the abilities of students in terms of using unfair means, that causes stress and anxiety. So instead of actually analyzing or assessing the actual cognitive abilities, the creative potential of students, when the focus of exams is on memory testing or testing those faculties that are not actually very useful, that can actually lead to stress and anxiety on the part of the student. This is more likely in high-stake exams and exams that happen once a year, or once 2 years. So this could also be one of the negative impacts or washback effect of exams.